Hi, this is Skeptic Sage. It's about 3:35 in the morning, which is a crazy thing to be doing a video at this time. But I was just watching a video before going to bed, and I had to respond. The name of the video was Two Behavioral Outcomes Caused by Two Belief Systems. I'm probably tearing that or destroying that title. It's, I think, a little bit different than that, but that's effectively the idea. It's the name of the video is the name of my video with the word revisited removed. In this, he comes to the conclusion that people behave as they think, which really excited me because I know as a psychologist that that is in fact true. So I was excited. He then gives what he calls an atheistic evolutionist worldview, and then gives a Christian worldview. He then proceeds to explain the Christian worldview and the atheist worldview, showing that he knows very little about either of them. He then describes what are the obvious, what he thinks are the obvious conclusions about how to lead your life. The problem is that he doesn't realize how self-serving his responses are. Again, it's another video done by a Christian person claiming that if you're a Christian, you're going to have this wonderful viewpoint of life, and you're going to have these wonderful behaviors, and you're going to lead a better life. Well, sir, I'm forgetting your name. I have never known that to be so. Most of the meanest people that I've ever met in my life have been Christians. Most of the greatest atrocities on this planet have been created by Christians and by Christian countries. Your statements doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. You also seem to believe that if someone doesn't believe in God, then they can do whatever they will. That fearing death is somehow associated with people living for themselves and living selfishly. But what you're really talking about is living self-directedly and living by your own reason versus living by a standard set by a group of people who claim that they're connected to some kind of God. So you're really talking about freedom versus slavery, being enslaved to a religion and its beliefs versus having beliefs that are derived from reason. You seem to be under the assumption that people who enslave themselves to religions act morally, and that people who are guided by their own reason don't. Where would you get such an assumption? I don't understand where you're getting it from. You don't explain that in your video. What I've noticed is that people who are Christians, or especially Islamic people, find it far easier to kill other people and to harm other people because they feel they have a religious right to do so. It's okay to kill someone if they're an apostate, they're doing something against God, etc., 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 whereas a rational person who's an atheist would never do such a thing. Why would they? They could care less what another person believes as long as it doesn't affect them or their neighbors or their nation or the world. So I think the issue here isn't one of theism versus atheism. It's an issue of logical, rational, scientific theory versus ideology. What are the greatest ideologies of the 20th century? Christianity, Islam, fascism, and communism. And we can go back, let's say, 20 centuries, 2,000 years, and we all know what those four ideologies have done to the world. So it really has nothing to do with theism versus atheism. Two of those philosophies have been semi-associated, one of them very associated with atheism, one of them semi-associated with atheism. But you can see, when atheism is mixed with ideology, it becomes as evil as anything else. Ideology, which is the belief in things based on faith and not on reason, generally tends to lead to dysfunctional behavior. That's because behavior that's based on a rational and knowledgeable view of the world and understanding of the world is going to lead to behavior that is functional, that enables a person to use their environment, to relate to other people in ways that are functional and ways that make sense to them. When a person starts to believe crazy things, they're going to engage in crazy behavior. They're going to believe that the world is different than it really is. Therefore, they're going to expect different things in the world, and therefore they're going to act upon the world in ways based upon assumptions that are false. A good example is the belief system of the current government of the United States. Because they did not actually ask Islamic scholars and Middle Eastern scholars about what was going on in the Middle East and how people would react to an invasion of Iraq, they decided only to have 150,000 soldiers. They were going to march into Iraq. We were going to be, ushered in as liberators. Right? We all know the story. Of course, this ended up being a disaster. Why? Because the decisions weren't made on anything rational, logical. It was not based on any kind of knowledge of the Middle East that was based on any state of affairs of what actually happens in the world. It was based on ideological, neocon claptrap floating in the sky, unrelated to any kind of knowledge, rationality, facts, scientific studies. Any of those would have been interesting, nice. They would at least have given those men pause. It's the same thing with Islamic terrorists. They are cocksure that their religion is absolutely correct, so why not kill people? If your religion is absolutely correct and your Quran says that oppression is worse than slaughter, and it says that you must kill the non-believers, etc., 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 well, it's pretty easy to take all those things out of context and shove them all together and come up with the idea that if people are pissing you off and if they're not agreeing with you and if their foreign policy doesn't make your country rich or doesn't make your country, maybe it works even against you, well, you just start killing people. Why not? Why shouldn't you? But that's the very behavior that the gentleman who made this video seems to think happens in the absence of religion, in the absence of a God worldview. People who believe in God scare me, because once you start to believe that there's a daddy in the sky, an all-encompassing daddy in the sky, that you have a personal relationship with this person, it starts to make you very arrogant. It starts to make you think morally that you're cocksure about everything. An atheist who is a skepticist, a scientist, a person who's an atheist because he has a scientific rational worldview is never ever morally convinced of everything. Every moral decision is something that they have to think about, and they always feel ambivalent, and they always are wondering what is right and wrong. They're always wondering what is right for everybody, what is right for them. If I do this, what will happen? If I don't do that, then what will happen? For us atheists, we don't have a little rule book that we can just look in and say, well, that's what you do, because that's what God said. We actually have to think about it. That doesn't lead to less moral behavior. I think it leads to more moral behavior. I don't know where this illusion that logic, rationality, and science on its own leads to immorality and religion somehow leads to morality. Can anyone really say that the ideologies of communism and fascism and Christianity and Islam have been associated with peace, and that the Enlightenment philosophers and the atheist and agnostic philosophers like Spinoza, well, Spinoza's not a good example, but Hume and Diderot, and all of the Enlightenment philosophers who talked about the rights of man, who created the entire moral structure of the rights of man, that those people actually have brought about violence? It doesn't make a lot of sense. The most peaceful countries are Norway, Sweden, Finland, the atheist countries. Why is that? Why aren't the Islamic countries, or India, who are very religious, why aren't those countries peaceful? India has people getting killed all the time. Kind of makes you wonder. This is Skeptic Sage saying that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and I wish everybody peace, especially especially all you religious people out there, because you need it.